Welcome back to Coffee Talk with Mel. Today we're coming from you from the Coffee Grinder in Warwick, Rhode Island. Today I have a very special guest with me, the one, the only Miss Jennifer Patricia.
Hello.
AKA Jenny P. Thanks so much for joining us today, Jen.
Thank you for having me.
Jenny is a licensed broker since 2010 with the RE/MAX organization. And not only is she a licensed broker, but she is also an investor and a successful woman.
I try.
So today's episode is going to be real estate horror stories. Now, we've had a few episodes of them, but let me tell you, Jen's got some juicy stuff in store for us today. So, Jen, welcome, and let's just get right into it. What would you say
sounds great.
is your number one real estate horror story?
My number one, well, thanks for having me here at the Coffee Grinder. My top one, you want me to start with?
Yeah, I think we should start.
We're just going to go in?
We're going to go right into it.
Gosh, it's a wild world out here that we live in as realtors. So when Mel asked me to think of these things, the first thought and the worst thing I've been through was when I was selling a house in Providence and, we had it on a lockbox just because it's usually best to have your key right there so you don't ever forget your key. Or lose it. Yep, that happens. And one day my seller called me and she was like, there's somebody living in the house.
What?
Yes. A squatter.
Living in the house.
They moved, I can't even tell you, they moved so much stuff in there. It was like 4 adults. They moved in overnight, took a U-Haul because the neighbor had cameras. So then she got to see the footage.
And it wasn't the buyer.
Oh no, we weren't even, we were just like, we just did inspections.
Oh.
And so
my
obviously
goodness.
my seller called the police, blah, blah, blah. They had a forged lease that they said I gave them and they signed my name to it.
No, they didn't.
It was wild. And if my seller didn't know people in the police force, it would have been very difficult to get them out. So she was really lucky.
So wait, take a step back. So the seller's neighbor is the one that found out that they were in the house.
No, her dad went to go do the smoke detectors.
No.
And was like, somebody's in here.
Oh.
But her neighbor had cameras.
But did they change the locks?
Oh, they like cut the lockbox. I don't even know how they got the key. I think they smashed the lockbox open. It was insanity.
So
You
they
can't
had
even imagine
furniture in the house.
Full.
Oh my goodness. And so when you say they had a lease, they just made up a lease and put your name on it?
Yep, showed it to the police.
Did they put you as the owner?
As the agent.
Stop it.
Yeah. I've never
Wow.
seen anything like it.
How long were they living there for?
It was, they only ended up being there a few days. Yeah.
But still.
Yeah.
So how, again,
And then
did
they
the seller-
smoked in there. So I can't even tell you how much they smoked that it
They
actually
smoked
still smelled.
cigarettes in there?
No.
Or multiple things?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a wild ride. Luckily, the buyer
scary.
stuck in with us. And
Oh, that's right, because you had to tell the buyer because it was under contract.
yeah,
What was the buyer's reaction?
we minimized the scenario, but yeah,
Oh my
we just told them
goodness.
we're going to need a few extra days.
Stop.
Yeah, my
How
seller
far away were you from the closing?
probably like 2.5 weeks from the closing. So we
you
had
were,
some
like,
time.
right there.
I know.
And they were okay with the smoke, or you just kind of got the smell
No,
out?
my seller was able to get the smell out.
Oh
Yeah,
my
I
goodness.
know.
And you closed with no problems, no
We-
credits,
I'd say
nothing.
that was the biggest problem. Yeah, no, I mean the buyer moved forward and it was fine with that. But the scenario of having to deal with that woman lying to the police because, like I said, if my seller didn't know anybody, they would have said you have a lease and you're going to have to evict this woman, is what she was being told. So
And
she
I
had to
bet
go up
you
the ladder.
That wasn't the first time that they had done
Oh, they were professional squatters.
that. Well, it's interesting that you say that because I remember another agent telling me a similar horror story of a house that she had listed and somebody had moved themselves in. Did the same thing, cut the lockbox, did a fake lease. the
It
whole
is
nine.
wild.
But it did not work that way. It did not go as smooth and easy as your horror story.
Yeah.
So, wow.
That was a highly stressful situation.
So 2 weeks, and then you're like, all right, we're getting a closing. I hope this never happens to me
and
again.
especially because you don't want your seller to think like
That
you
you're not paying
gave somebody a
attention.
key. Yeah,
Of course.
I know. So it was wild.
And so this is the importance too, to realize that when you do have a home on lockbox, because us as agents, we can't be everywhere.
No.
And for me, I have multiple listings, just like you have multiple listings at any given time. And to have a huge key ring with all the different keys and then which pocketbook, which car.
Yeah. And if you have a
all that.
showing agent, like you want the key on site so they can get in easily.
100%.
Yeah.
So it's very common to use lock boxes. But this is an important statement to make sure that any licensed agent has to be present at the showing for anything. And this is why we do have ethics in our community, is to make sure that there's never an unlicensed person
Absolutely
at the property.
And lucky for me, I was using showing time. So I had every single name of every single
so you
agent.
were able to contact everyone.
Yeah.
Well, hey, you know what? Give me a high five on that one. Congratulations.
We got through it.
I'm getting through it. Wow. I don't think I've really had a situation like that. I mean, I've definitely had multiple situations,
Have you ever gone into a house to show it and there were squatters?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One that comes into mind.
Why does that feel like that's typical?
I was like, that's totally normal. Well, when we had the foreclosure boom.
Yeah,
there
that's
was
when
a
that
house
would
on
happen.
Toby Street in Providence. Oh, here we are, Providence, a recurring theme.
Mhm.
And it was myself and Matt Tonning, and we went in and you could hear the shuffling, and then there was like a 6-pack. 3 of the bottles were missing, and one of them like had half of it left.
Oh.
And that's why, I always tell agents, make sure you're with somebody when you go to these properties.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Not to go alone. And my big thing is just make sure it's light out.
Yeah.
It's
Like
light
this,
out.
this time of year, no, I'm not showing a vacant house at 6 o'clock.
Nope. Definitely,
Not at all.
Definitely not.
But you learn this as when you start as a new agent, you want to be able to do everything and like be everywhere.
You want to be a
but you
part
learn,
of it.
yeah.
You learn what is important and what's not important. And
in safety, yep. You say it.
The number one thing is safety.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. So it's interesting, one story that comes to my mind right now is one that just happened, closed this year.
Yep, fresh in the memory.
Fresh in the memory. Wonderful couple.
Yeah.
Great couple. They were so excited to build their dream house, new construction. I mean, who doesn't want to, build a brand new house? And
it's the American dream.
Seriously. And the builder, I had witnessed his construction because I'd gone to a handful of houses that he had constructed before. Great detail, always on point. I was very excited. And so we went into contract. And for those of you that don't know, they do offer construction loans where you buy the land, and then as the work gets done, the money gets dispersed. So they bought the land in 2021. They closed on the land August of 2021. The house was supposed to be completed by the end of April 2022. We just closed on the transaction last month.
Well, and it's funny because you would keep saying the new construction I'm doing, and then it was like years went by, and we're like, Mel.
And it was one of those
I was thinking it wasn't going to get done.
I honestly did too.
Yeah.
My clients offered to sell the land back to the builder after the foundation still wasn't poured when the house was supposed to be completed.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's tough.
But the problem is from 2021 to 2023, obviously the prices skyrocketed.
Yeah.
The interest rates slowly crept up.
Yeah.
So it financially did not make sense to the buyers to get out of the agreement.
Well, and then if you think about it, now how are you going to go build a new construction now? It's going to be so expensive.
You own the land.
And you own the land. Terrible.
I mean, the whole thing.
Wow.
But I will
That's a tough
say,
one.
At the end of the day, I stuck into it.
Yep.
The buyer stuck into it. I was lucky enough to have an opportunity for them to rent a house that I own.
Yeah.
So they were able to at least have some savings because the builder kept saying, it's going to be done in 6 months. It's going to be done in 6 months. And as you know, when you have a short-term lease, it's more expensive than a yearly lease.
Yeah.
So every 3 months they were renewing it.
Yeah.
But I will say the kitchen is to die for.
Well, you know what? And it was probably worth it. And for you to have an option for them like that, that's amazing because we're always helping people. We love helping our clients. We
course.
do that. But to be able to do that, that's huge.
100%.
Yeah.
So that one
They'll
was
forever be grateful for that scenario.
And they're such great people. And it just broke my heart that there was nothing that I could do to
Of course.
make it go faster.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they are finally in their home and they are very, very, very happy with the product.
Oh, good.
But it was the most stressful 3 years of their lives.
Hopefully they didn't have to see the builder at the closing.
That's a whole nother story for another time. They're still doing landscaping outside. So
I'm
yes,
sure.
They do. Yes, they do.
Great.
But with that being said, do you have any new construction or other stories that come to mind?
I've been hearing some people go through some tough new construction stuff, but things that go through I guess I'll talk this year. I was working with these wonderful first-time home buyers who I just adored. And they, I could start to tell during the transaction, especially from the first negotiation, that the seller was going to be really tough and he was flipping it. But he was also living in it and flipping it. So I have so many questions.
There's so many
about
red flags with what you just said.
I know. There are so many red. But
So
sometimes
many
you don't
red
know
flags,
until
but
you're in it.
And it's limited inventory. You don't have a
Yeah.
lot of choices.
They liked the area. They thought the house was so cute. And they could, the guy was flipping it, but he didn't do a great job. So they thought we can do a bunch of work to this and we're getting it at the price we want to be in. So, that's important for
Win-win.
people right now, being in their price point and getting the mortgage where they needed to be comfortable.
Especially with 6.5-7% interest rates.
Yeah. And so they know they're not going to stay there forever. But so I scheduled, so it kept being delayed by the seller. I was
Surprise.
I know. Yeah. I'm are the inspection requests done? We're a week away from closing. And I could tell that the listing agent didn't really have control over the seller's scenario. So we scheduled a walkthrough with the inspector again based on requests that were made, right? It's a typical thing. You make requests. If sellers do repairs, it's always advisable to have the inspector come back and look at them. So
I remember this.
yeah, so when we, Mel and I talk about our horror stories all the time. So we go to the walkthrough and then the seller's there.
No.
And the listing agent.
Wait a second. The seller was at the final walkthrough?
The seller was there with his pit bull and two very large men moving stuff out of the house.
No.
And the listing agent comes up to me and he's like, I just want to let you know the seller's here. And I was like, I mean, this is awkward, but we have the inspector here. It costs time and money to have an inspector come back with you. So, and I had one of my newer agents with me shadowing me. I mean, what a beautiful thing. So, and the two buyers.
You had somebody there.
Oh, no. And the two buyers and the inspector I know really well. So so we're doing this walkthrough and we're in the basement and we're going up and down. And there was this thing going on. He would not open the scuttle for the attic. He had painted a check. He refused to open it. So what does that do?
Up there?
Well, no kidding. So what does that do? It just totally red flags you. You're but you signed off on that repair. So just open it, right? He wouldn't open it. His agent was trying to open it and he came up and he was freaking out on his agent. So whatever. I'm
Grown man.
Very grown man. And we're all right, whatever. We're going to kind of sidestep this guy because he was starting to get a little scary. So then we're in the basement with the inspector, the two buyers, and the agent that was with me. And the guy comes in from the bulkhead and he just starts flipping out on me.
Yelling.
Oh, yeah, really scary.
Yelling,
and his
screaming.
two guys came down the bulkhead too. So immediately, safety.
Of course.
I'm we had another exit, luckily. And he starts coming at me. And I was sir, I just don't understand and I had the repair done in my hand. So I'm you signed off on it. I don't effing care. I'm not effing it. Open it up, blah, blah, blah. Freaking out on me. So I was I said, girls, go upstairs. And I was okay, sir, listen, we're going to go outside and we're going to call the attorneys. There's nothing I'm going to be able to get solved
Clearly,
here.
you're not emotionally stable enough to have a conversation.
No, I know. And he was coming at me and I wasn't backing down, but I wasn't
You're
trying
a
to.
boss, that's why.
That's right. I wasn't trying to be too aggressive. I wasn't trying to make the situation worse. Whatever. Then we go outside because I'm it was a little bit of a scary scenario. So I'm a little scared. We go outside.
You're
we're like
better than
cooling
me.
off. Yeah, Mel, you would have been in jail.
Lost it? I would've
Yeah,
been in
you would have been like, whoa, he was bad. So, that's so funny. So we're calling the attorneys, whatever. Attorneys not answering. We're waiting for the call back. And all of a sudden, the guy's screaming and yelling, flipping out on the inspector, chases the inspector out of the house, threatening to kick his ass. It was insane. It was actually totally insane.
You're like, I'm sorry, we're in middle school.
No, I
What's
hopped in my
going
client's
on?
car. I hopped in because that was the closest car to us. We hopped in, and we were like so scared. I was like, girls, we're gonna get at it. We are all leaving this scenario right now. And then at the closing, they gave me boxing gloves, which was so
No,
my
they did
buyers,
not.
yeah, because we got through it.
my
And it
gosh.
was terrible getting through it, but I stuck up for what was right. And we dealt with the scenario how we needed to, but it was very funny. They gave me those boxing gloves. So I have a picture of me with them on, and
That is my favorite.
it was funny.
The boxing gloves.
Yeah.
Wow.
All in a day's work around here.
And this is why you hire licensed, professional, experienced, seasoned agents.
Yeah.
Because they know how to handle any situation that comes at you.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
It was something.
I am really proud of you for,
Yeah.
not
Back
going-
it up, and we're gonna exit stage left.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's the thing is sometimes there's so much emotion and you don't know what's going on in the background of somebody's life. Clearly there was something else going on and he was projecting this anger towards you and the inspector.
And then his attorney's like, he's such a nice guy. Like, I can't imagine that this happened. I'm like, okay, well, 7 people witnessed this, so I rest
Not
assured.
making it up.
Yeah,
I
rest
mean,
assured.
Why would you make up something
Yeah,
like that?
very unhelpful.
That is, wow.
I know, it was
wow.
something.
Yep, just all in a day's work.
Yeah.
That's-
Sometimes a week in real estate feels like a full year.
Now that is the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember getting a phone call from you last week about something and it just made me laugh. Remember, I was like, you know what? This is what we do.
Yep.
And we
And
just
get through
move
it.
forward
Mhm.
and we get through it because at the end of the day,
You got to keep your eye on the goal for your client.
you 100% do.
Yeah.
And as I've repeated over and over again, always do the right thing. In this situation,
Oh, yeah.
Jenny did the right thing.
Yeah.
She just said, okay, we're going to remove ourselves from this situation and we're going to let the attorneys figure it out at the closing table. And that was the smartest thing. And now, are your clients in the house and happy and satisfied in the house?
They are, yeah. So I had said to them during that, I said, you guys do not have to move forward because he didn't do the request, right? Like he didn't do some of them. So I was like, I support you
With whatever. you decide to do.
wholeheartedly. I would have preferred them not to buy it just to really screw up the seller's life. But, again,
Sometimes-
with your eye on the ultimate goal of getting into a home that you've been waiting for a month and a half, we made it work. And yes, they're very happy in there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Because I sometimes do that. I want to fight for my client and fight for my client. Sometimes I have to take a step back and say, client, what would you like?
Yeah.
Because ultimately it's your decision. So
Totally.
then sometimes I have to.
Yeah.
to
Like,
back
what do you
down.
want me to fight
But
for?
I just
I'll
want
fight for
them
it.
to know that I am fighting for them and that,
Yeah.
their goals are the same as my goals to make sure that they're in a good product that is going to be
Safe.
sellable in the future.
Yeah.
Safe.
Mm-hmm.
And getting what they're paying for.
Yeah.
So
And now
you
I've
know-
got boxing gloves, so I'm pretty
I know
pumped.
that's amazing.
Thanks.
It actually piques my mind into another flip that I actually sold.
Oh.
For a real estate horror story. Now, I wasn't the original agent. This actually came to a referral for me from another agent because they're not licensed in Massachusetts.
Yep.
And I am. So it was this younger couple. They were living in Little Compton and their family owned a house in Little Compton. They had moved out and they bought this really cute ranch and it was a flip. And they were super happy and they were so excited. And their agent, brand new agent, told them to waive the home inspection. And
Yikes.
even though it was a flip,
Whoa.
and they went to the house once, and then they went to the walkthrough. At the walkthrough, they were like, it kind of smells funny. And the agent's like, oh, no worries, don't worry about it. It's a flip.
Mm.
They get into the house. The oil smell
Oh.
was so strong.
Yikes. And you can't, that is not something to mess around with. You can taste that.
I mean, bad.
Yeah.
So there was an oil spill that was not disclosed.
Oh my goodness.
And half of the basement was, wait for it, dirt.
Oh.
and the other half was concrete.
Oh.
So
my
if you're not
gosh.
familiarized with dirt basements and oil getting into soil,
Ooh.
it has to be taken care of by environmental management in the state
Yeah.
so that that soil doesn't get contaminated. And if the soil is contaminated, it has to be removed
Yeah, like properly.
professionally.
Yeah.
So they ended up spending thousands and thousands of dollars
Wow.
to get
That's just so terrible.
to get that
Why
soil
wouldn't someone
removed.
disclose that? Because they don't want to deal with it.
And
But
it
like
was a-
also,
but it
that's
was
like
a flip.
illegal.
So, so a year goes by. They're totally frustrated in the house. You can see it's kind of coming between them. And they got the opportunity to actually buy the house in Little Compton from their family. And
Oh, good.
who doesn't want to buy a house in Little Compton?
I do.
Me too. So they enlisted me to resell the house. Luckily, they did the right thing.
Oh.
They went through the environmental management through the state. They got all the proper paperwork.
Yeah.
They removed all of the oil. We were able to resell it. And the buyers had a home inspection.
Good.
Okay. So because the sellers that I was representing never had a home inspection,
Oh.
I said, because
Not good.
you already had a problem with the oil spill, I guarantee you there's going to be multiple items that come up.
Yeah.
I had a gut
Stuff.
feeling. I just had a gut feeling. So I said that, I prepared them, and they said, okay, I'm prepared. And so the inspection report that came back was like 70 pages long.
Oh, God.
I mean, anything you could think of, from the wrong wiring to, the wrong circuit breakers.
Plumbing,
to
I'm sure.
plumbing, to
Yeah.
everything and anything came up. So I do have to give the buyer's agent credit. And this is why it is very
That was purchasing when you sold it.
correct.
Yeah.
It's very advisable to have a good buyer's agent and a good listing agent, because
Oh, yeah.
when you're both professional, you can work through these issues and
You can work through anything
anything.
when you're professional.
100%, like 3 years for a new construction.
Yeah. There we go.
And so the agent said, I own a repair company.
Great.
I was like,
Thank
great.
you.
The buyer's father works for the repair company.
Oh, we love this.
So the father, luckily was at the home inspection, knew the inspector, went through everything.
Oh,
And-
that's nice.
And so what we did was, rather than having anything repaired, and I do always suggest this, is we offered a credit.
Great.
And ultimately, I got those kids out of that house,
Wow.
into their house in Little Compton.
They must have been so thrilled.
They were over the moon. And I also
But at least
have
now
to
the
say,
new buyers.
the
Oh, I'm
new
sorry.
buyers are so happy.
Yeah, because at least now they know the product they're getting.
100.
That's the important thing.
100%.
Knowledge is power, especially in real estate.
Knowledge is very, very powerful.
Yeah.
And experience. You can't fake experience.
No,
That's
you
the
can't.
biggest thing. And
Not
if you-
much really jams me up anymore.
No, but I mean, there's still things that come up that I've never heard of before.
Oh, that's always going to happen. But it's more about how you work through them, right?
100%. Because
I
like
used
you
to
said,
get
there's
very
always a solution.
nervous, be like, the sky's falling. But now
Oh, the
it's,
end of the world?
Yeah,
100%.
I mean, it's natural until you know these things and you go through these horror stories.
Exactly.
But that's great that they made it work.
And so another point I'd like to make for any new agents out there listening is, like I said, the agent was
Listen
great.
up.
I'm so glad that we were able to get to closing. But when that offer first came in very, very, very small fine print, there was a $6,000 closing cost credit.
Oh,
So, in Massachusetts, they do the offer form first,
yeah.
and then they do the purchase and sale agreement.
Mm-hmm.
So I read it through. I went over with the buyers. They signed it. We signed it. The purchase and sales agreement gets drawn up, like by the attorneys, sometimes by
Yeah,
us,
yeah,
it
yeah.
depends in Mass. The agent and I felt comfortable with each other, so I just did it. And he calls me. He goes, "You didn't include the $6,000 closing cost credit." And I said, "Excuse me?" He goes, "The $6,000 closing cost credit." I go, "There's no $6,000 closing cost credit." He goes, "Yes, there was, under additional provisions."
And
look,
like
he was
size
really good.
4
I liked
font.
it. Exactly.
Like, make it known.
So I might have had a little bit of a meltdown. You know what that is. And so I took a deep breath.
I love that you call it a meltdown.
I got to give that shout out to Marissa, because Marissa's the one that came up with
Oh,
term.
that is so funny.
With that being said, I took a deep breath and I said, I like my word is everything. Your reputation is everything.
Yeah.
And I said, I just got to call the sellers and just be honest. And so I called them and I said, I made a mistake. There is a $6,000 closing cost credit.
Yeah.
And here are your options. You can get out of the contract, not sign the purchase and sales agreement, not move forward.
Yep.
Or clearly we've already had a home inspection, which you saw was an absolute nightmare, right?
Yeah.
And you can basically move forward and eat the 6,000, or we, don't sign a sales agreement. We put it back on the market, get another buyer, go through another home inspection.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. And she said, Melanie, my husband and I reviewed that sales agreement 5 times. She goes, we didn't see it either.
Oh.
And I had this huge wave of relief.
Yeah.
Because, $6,000 is a lot of money.
I know.
And so they were...
Put that in the same size font, people, please.
Well, and I'll show it to you.
Yeah.
I'll show it to you.
Wait, and then, but that 6,000, was that just the credit you gave them?
No, we gave them an additional credit for the home inspection.
Sure.
But at the end
Which
of the
is
day,
okay.
At the end of the day, the client's goals was just to get out of that house.
Yeah.
And they were actually making money on it, even though it was only a year.
Wow.
So,
thanks to this market.
I know. With that being said, what other horror story do you have that you can think of?
Horror story number 3. So many things have happened.
I know, right? It's so hard.
One that actually jammed me up. I had a 3-family listed in Pawtucket, and
Oof.
Honestly, it was a nice property, but I think when you're dealing with tenants,
Is that the one I went to with you?
I don't think so.
We'll have to tell that story.
Oh gosh. I don't know if I remember that one. You always want to be extra good to the tenants, right? Obviously, if they're going to be nice to you, because sometimes they aren't. But, they're living in these homes. It's very stressful for them. So I always, make those connections with them and let them know, you'll definitely get 24 hours notice. I will never just bring people to the house. And, if you have any pets, please take your pets when we have inspections or appraisals. But sometimes, people don't consider cats an animal they have to take out of the house. So we were doing an inspection and the appraisal was the same day. So there was a lot of doors opening.
With a lot with the cat.
Yeah, but there was one unit where I knew the cats were. So I kept saying,
yeah, you said, okay.
Make sure you shut the doors. Mm-hmm. Guys, a cat got out. It was so sad.
The cat got out?
I spent the entire day. It was 90 degrees in August, scouring the streets looking for this cat because I felt so bad. I had to call the tenant and tell them your cat got out. Okay. It was their baby. They were freaking out. And the appraiser didn't shut the door behind
it. Was it an indoor cat?
Of course.
Oh.
Of course it was an indoor cat. It was... Do you know that cat didn't come back for 3 weeks?
Are you you didn't even get the cat back in?
No, I didn't get the cat back in. I didn't get the cat back in. No. I was drenched in sweat trying to find this cat anywhere I could.
Did you get them a cat toy after closing?
No. Okay. I'm so sorry. I should have thought of that. I was traumatized. I was mortified and traumatized that happened. Because the inspector was being so good, but the appraiser just I don't know, just didn't.
The appraiser just had not in the game.
No.
Well, that happens, I think, more often than we know.
I bet. I felt bad about that, though.
I had the same thing. I was at an inspection, and it was don't let the cat out, don't let the cat out. What does it do? It literally runs out.
No, it's scary.
The inspector barely opens it. The inspector was chasing the cat around the pool. Because there was a covered pool, okay?
Stop.
Chasing the cat. It was and you can
it's good cat voice,
right? Running after the cat. I gotta give it to him, man.
You should have taken a video of him running after that cat. That is so. Do you have video of that?
No, I'm in there and I'm oh my god, the cat got out. Oh my god, the cat got out. The
you don't know
not
what
even
to do.
Here. The listing agent's gonna freak out on me. I'm the buyer's agent. So I didn't want to have to tell the listing agent that I let the cat out.
No.
So that was really, really funny. But I want to tell the horror
story
about Pawtucket. So remember one night you were like, hey, do you want to come for a ride up to Pawtucket with me? Because it was one of your investors' flips, right?
Oh, okay.
And it was an old 1900s house, multifamily. And, obviously we're friends outside of real estate too. So I was like, yeah, I'll totally go up there with you. It was dark and I want you to be safe.
Yeah. Not going to go in there by
see,
myself.
all you got to do is phone a friend.
Phone a friend. That's
Phone a
it,
friend
really.
Whenever you're going anywhere after dark. So I got Jen. I jumped in with Jen and we went up there and we're going through the house and it's vacant. So it's a little eerie.
It is, right? It's just like a weird thing.
And it was like a 3-unit or a 4-unit. It was a
huge
big house.
3-family.
Kind of cool. Had some really great character, some old school character.
Yeah.
And then we were in the basement. Now it's coming back to you, isn't it?
What happened?
So we're in the basement, and I pointed out, I think, the sewer line, because you hadn't had the inspection yet. And I was like, hey, the sewer line, you can see it's basically eating itself from the inside of the pipe. So
it's called pitting.
Pitting. Thank you.
Welcome.
I just learned something new. Thank you, Jen. So the pitting was starting to happen, and I just kind of said, hey, this is going to happen. And then remember, I think it was the hot water tank and the heating system's like way in the back or something.
Yeah, it would. Yeah.
And so I don't know why
Try getting that water reading.
I don't know why the lights weren't on. I don't know. But I remember walking. In this basement, it had tree trunks for, the
posts. They
Posts.
were like holding it up.
So I'm like, curious. I'm looking, and all of a sudden, I got scared to death. And I'm
probably saw a
you,
ghost.
There was some energy, and it was not a happy energy in that basement. I turned around.
Yeah.
I was ghostly white, and I started sprinting out of that basement. You're like, what's wrong? I'm like, nothing, everything's fine.
Yeah, I was like, am I supposed to scream right now and run? I just ran behind you.
Everything's fine. And then we had to lock up. I think we
You came upstairs, you're like, we're getting out of here.
Yeah, and then we had to lock up or whatever. And I didn't tell you until we got into the car, but man, I was scared.
I bet there's a lot of energy in that house.
I was really, really scared, and I had totally forgotten about that.
When we moved into our house in Cranston, we definitely had to get some ghosts out.
Really?
Yeah, it was a little freaky. I remember one night I'd just gone to bed, and it was we had just moved in. And something came, literally some sort of energy came right across Barrett and I, and we both popped up at the same time. And I was like, did you see that? And he was like, did you see that? And I was like, Barrett,
No, I didn't see it.
I am freak. I hid under those covers. He got up and he got his camera out on his phone. He filmed some energy in that house. Oh yeah, we think they were passing.
Story.
It was
You think they were just passing
well, because
through?
also don't want to talk about it because it was freaking me out.
Yeah.
But I think they might have been passing through. It was you could see some stuff on the camera, and I was like, I am not gonna sleep tonight. It was scary.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I believe in ghosts though. But
that reminds me of this house on Main Road. It wasn't my listing. It was Joanne Samborski's listing years and years and years ago when I first got into the business.
Yep.
Right? And I had brought my boyfriend at the time to go with me. And we went in, and then we went upstairs, and it was something to do with the smoke detectors or something. And I felt like there was a light on upstairs. So I went up, and it was in one of the eaves. So I opened up one of the eaves, and it just had writing, and it was help me.
No.
Help me out of here.
What?
And I screamed at the top of my
Oh,
lungs, ran out of that
damn.
house. I mean, I'm telling you.
Oh my gosh, that makes me sweat. I'm sweating right now.
The only other time it happened was when I was in that house with you.
Great.
In
Perfect.
real estate. Oh my goodness.
That is
But
crazy.
it's you just honestly never know.
No.
So I'm going to bring up a sore subject right now.
Uh-oh.
Because I think it kind of correlates to the real estate horror story. So in case I didn't mention when we first began talking, Jennifer is also an investor.
You called me Jennifer. That was weird. Don't
Sorry,
do that.
Jenny. She also is an investor where she will flip houses, and she will also purchase and hold. So right now she purchased this three family, right?
Yeah.
And she's holding it. And so, Jen, I'll let you finish the story. It was a great value,
Thanks
great
for bringing it up,
value,
Mel.
Great everything.
Yeah. So the tough thing is I was warned about this retaining wall from my inspector and my mother, who luckily has not said I told you so. Yeah.
I'm surprised your mom. I mean, I love your mom to death, but I can't
But
believe she hasn't said
I know, but
told you so yet.
I know. In my head, I'm thinking this house has been here since 1890.
It's fine.
Why would this fall now? I bought it 4 years ago. Well, in January of this past year, we had those crazy landslide, like,
Remember all the
floods.
water?
And we had like FEMA.
Yes.
FEMA was like in
FEMA was
Rhode
here.
Island.
Yeah, that's why our insurance has gone up.
And it washed out this very huge, very important retaining wall that holds up the entire driveway. There's about 12 feet from the driveway to the house. And it's still not settled. I had to get a survey. The person
and it was
who,
all from the rain.
from the rain. You know what I think
Out of your
happened?
control.
Out of my control. And another thing out of my control that I could probably never prove is that they just redid a mill down the road and they were blasting.
Oh, that's exactly what it was.
And the tenant said, "Oh yeah, like I feel the house shake when they're like doing the work down there." So like if the house is shaking,
Jen, that's exactly what it was.
I know. I'll never prove it. So I'm in a terrible situation with that, which is great. We've got lawyers involved, the neighbor. She wouldn't let us do the fix that would make it like the least expensive fix. It's also partly her wall, which she has not come to terms with because I had to get a survey, obviously.
So the survey proved that the wall
Goes right down our property line.
No, it does not.
Yeah, actually more of it's on her line, but she ain't having it. So yeah, I don't know how that's going to work out, but it is a huge issue. And
so as an investor, as a real estate agent, what would you say to those that are getting in contract with a huge retaining wall? What would your advice be to them?
I would have somebody, here's the thing. I'd have somebody look at it because I never had anybody look at it and give me an idea
Like an
beforehand. Yeah, like an engineer or something. And, when you're in contract, it feels like, oh, like what, how could that possibly happen? It did. So it's been a huge learning experience. And quite honestly, it's like out of my league before this happened. This is what happens in real estate. Things feel completely like you would never deal with something like this. And then you deal with it. And then you learn from it. And then you continue to move on. And now I'll be able to advise my clients better because that wouldn't have been something that like really caught my attention.
Of course not, because you don't think about it. It's been standard since 1800s.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, things do fall down. So
Well,
that's a lesson.
that's a hard lesson for you, but I also think that you're still in a great position. And
Am I?
think, yes, I do. I truly
we'll see.
believe that you're still in a great position.
I don't know which way it's going to go, but we'll see.
You want to know what's crazy about that house is remember when you first bought it and what happened?
I had a plumbing leak?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't you remember you called me? You're like, the water is going into
Yeah,
the first
no,
floor
the
unit.
house
Do
has
you
been
have
a
the
problem
plumber?
since
Oh
I
my
bought
goodness.
it. The retaining wall's the, icing on the cake here.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it just
really, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a bad investment.
But that's why I like my single families.
I love single family investments
Single-family
too.
investments
No,
are the
it's so
way to go.
true.
Set it and forget it.
That's right.
my motto with single family.
Your problems will be less with a single
your,
family.
Your rate of return is going to be less.
Yep,
I think that's
true.
one thing to recognize and realize.
Yeah.
But you're going to have a lot less problems.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot less people.
Yeah. Or buy something a little less
and
old.
You know what's interesting too is that remember that house that we sold together? You were the listing agent and I was the
They haven't done anything to that house.
buyer's agent. No.
In Warwick.
Yeah.
I know. I drove by it recently and I
Yeah.
thought I was going to see all new siding. They didn't do one thing.
No.
No.
So I mean, such a cute little cottage, and I remember.
I'm sorry. It was a different house. Yeah, sorry.
And I remember the basement. There were a couple of things that came up on the home inspection report.
Yeah.
But it had been standing since the early 1900s, so we weren't concerned. Now, a situation like that, she loves the house. She hasn't had any problems.
Yeah.
So it's really specific.
Yeah.
To
That was Grove, right?
the structure.
And then it was Grove Street.
It was Grove.
Yeah.
Yes. What a great
Love that
transaction.
house.
Remember? I was
So
like,
good.
when you listed it.
I'm on my best behavior when I sell a house with Mel.
Now, Jen, why in the world would you say that?
Keep my clients on their best behavior.
Why would you say that?
Want it to go smooth. No issues. But yeah.
It's because we're both bosses. That's why.
Yeah.
But we have such a good relationship.
Yes.
I feel very, very, very confident that we're going to do many, many, many more transactions together.
And we get the deal
future.
done.
In the future, for sure. So are there any other stories that really come to mind and pique your interest to be able to spill?
I already told you about we already talked about the squatter. I mean, that was the number one. Boxer was number two.
Absolute.
When I was early on in my real estate career, not early, but probably like 5 years in,
I would be driving the Geo at this point.
it's not funny. I was not driving the Geo Prism. Thank you.
That is my favorite part.
That was a horror story. When my
I am
car got
obsessed.
hit,
Oh
I
my
moved. Yeah, I moved back from New York City with no
Yes,
money, and
no
I started
money,
in
I
real
remember.
estate, and I had
And
a
we were
Geo
sharing an
Prism.
office?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yes, that was amazing.
I have this beat
had the
up
best
car,
cars.
and this is embarrassing.
It's
but
not.
I
It's
had this
how
beat
people
up
start.
car, and somebody hit it on the street, so the driver's side door was like smashed in, but it was like my car. So I would park up the road at showings, and I would walk. I'd have to slinky outside of the
No, you
passenger
didn't.
door. Yes.
This is the best.
And then it had the
ever.
spoke sticking out that would like cut your leg because it was like chrome.
But look,
I
you
would have
worked
to,
through it.
and I'd be like, just checking out the neighborhood. But like
Liar.
really, like I
Parked
didn't
up the
want.
street. You're
And then the
embarrassed.
that stupid car, my final straw was when the handle broke off. I said, I'm done with
said
this thing.
yes.
I'm done.
Yes.
That was terrible.
Oh my gosh, that is odd.
Where you begin in real estate
Absolutely
and where you
amazing.
go. Yeah.
Well, that's like I had my Nissan Sentra, and on my way to my first home inspection, I hydroplaned off 295.
Oh my
at
goodness.
8:45 in the morning.
Whoa.
My car turned over twice.
What?
Landed on its side. And I remember like being like, "Oh my god, I can't get to the home inspection. Oh my god, this is."
Okay, isn't that terrible? Like that's our first thought.
That was my 100% first thought.
It's so funny.
And I remember, and so, as real estate agents, and I think when you're in your early 20s, you also have, backup in your car, backup shoes, back then it was CDs.
Yep.
We had everything in our car.
So long Mel's been in the business.
So, yes, exactly. So everything went everywhere. Luckily, this is why I always tell people seatbelts save lives.
I was going to say, you must have had your
really
seatbelt on.
does. Seatbelt saves lives.
Who doesn't wear their seatbelt?
And I'll never forget, I was like trying to get all my belongings because I knew I wasn't going to be able to get it out of the car. So I'm getting the CDs. And all of a sudden I hear this guy screaming at me, "Get out of the car. It's going to blow up. Get out of the car."
What?
So I'm like, wait, I need to get my shoes. Like, I was freaking
Holy-
out. 4
What?
different cars had stopped to help me, which
Oh,
was
thank goodness.
I love to hear the kindness of others. Lots of people stopped, and then this one gentleman, he was screaming, yelling at me, but I couldn't get out of the front of the car. I had to crawl into the back seat and get out that door
Jeez.
because it was in. And he helped me out, and we walked away. The car didn't blow up,
Oh,
but I
God.
think everyone was just nervous that
'Cause it
was going
could.
to, because it could, right? And this is why I believe like Nissans are great. I mean, you know how much I love Audi, but
Yep.
Nissans are also a great.
Yep.
You're driving a Nissan right now.
I
It's
am.
really,
Got a big
So-
Pathfinder.
well, because you have a family. So, with that being said,
And lots of shoes and lots of backup in the car.
yeah, I know, right? We always and our smoke detectors and drills.
Now it's got a thing. So I've got like this
no
whole
way.
compartment underneath the back seats where you know
that's
what I mean?
really
Yeah, it's
cool.
so nice. So all my real estate stuff I just put right in
Just
there.
put right in
Which is
there,
really nice.
Which is really nice, so that
Yeah.
if you were to ever get in a car accident, it wouldn't be thrown.
Still
all
got my
over the
smoke
place.
detectors.
So I remember that happening, and I remember I was so like upset about the home inspection, but obviously that's a situation that you
I'm
can't-
sure your client understood.
Oh, they 100% did, and they
Yeah.
were just the nicest
Wow.
people. But sometimes you just don't know, and luckily, like the
and
car was
you were
cool, but
okay.
I didn't have one scratch.
Wow.
Somebody was with me.
Yeah,
Somebody was definitely
obviously.
with me.
That's a higher power.
And the person that actually helped me out of the car at the time worked for UPS, and my brother worked for UPS at the time.
Oh.
So how funny, right? Like, and I didn't drive for 2 weeks, and
I
that
bet.
was when I purchased a Volvo.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to get the safest car.
Also safe.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
So I totally forgot about that.
That's
Wow.
crazy that
'Cause
happened.
You know what? Sometimes things do happen. Sometimes
Oh
things
yeah.
happen, and we just have to roll with it.
Yep. Absolutely. It's
but-
like, and if something happens with us, like our clients are like something like that, like your client's gonna be okay.
Yeah, I mean, what else are you gonna do?
But we just want to always be there with them. That's
Of course. So I'm also gonna bring up. Remember, obviously when you were first in the business,
Yep.
and I was still newer in the business. Remember when we decided to go door knocking on expireds?
Oh yeah. We were all excited. We were all hyped up.
We were ready.
We're gonna
to
go get listings.
We're gonna go out.
Because
in
remember
the
Sharon
neighborhood.
Sharon Field.
Yes.
Love this.
Sharon Field.
Love Sharon. Shout out Sharon.
Sharon.
Yeah. Shout out to Sharon. She is a door knocking queen.
And she's amazing at it.
Yes.
I mean, just absolutely amazing
She's
at it.
built a great business on doing that. And we're like, we can be like
can be like
Sharon.
Sharon.
We are not,
like
like
Sharon.
We are not like Sharon at all. That was terrible. We didn't get a listing, that's for sure.
We drove up to the house. And
Yeah.
I don't know if we'd already done a couple, but we were like marching right up to it. And it was right in Cranston, right off Oaklawn Ave.
Yeah,
remember.
we're thinking strength in numbers, the two of us.
Yeah, and so we knock and we hear some commotion. We knock some more and we hear some barking, and then we knock third time, and it sounded like there were 100 animals.
Oh my
in
gosh.
that house.
Oof.
And then the lady opens the door and is like, "We don't want any," yelling at us.
Hi.
And she
my name's
wanted
Jen. Like,
she wanted
so
nothing to do with us.
no.
I have never been so like mortified in my life.
Yeah.
And so needless to say, we jumped in the car and then went straight to lunch.
Yep. We
And
did
I-
like 4 doors.
I do have to say, I have never door knocked after that.
Gosh, well, I was door knocking my neighborhood recently, just trying to like get to know people. I was being
And then
literally.
you ran into my friend Jill.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, it feels great. And this woman was so mean to me. And I had one of my agents with me, and I was like,
Yeah.
this is what happens.
But you know what?
The women are mean.
I do have to say though, because I have 2 large dogs.
Yeah.
So when somebody knocks on my door, it
causes a
drives
big
me
commotion.
insane. Because
Yeah.
then I have to open the door. My dogs are barking at the 10th degree, and then
Don't you feel like so many people have more dogs? There's like more dogs now.
since COVID,
Oh, yeah. Good point.
you know, when
Because that's why
COVID
I don't like
happened,
doing it anymore either. It's like, someone's dog's going to come at me.
And then COVID happened, and then before you knew it, everyone's like, "Oh, I need an animal. I need an animal."
Yeah.
I mean, I think we all needed the emotional support of an
Oh,
animal.
yeah,
during
no kidding.
COVID. But at the end of the day, I think I definitely hung up my my hat on the door knocking. But it's funny. So there's so many different types of horror stories, right? We have the squatter horror story. And then we also, I've talked about a handful of ones. Obviously, my worst ever was the buyer dying when I was in the first episode.
Oh.
Can you imagine? 3 days
Oh,
before
my God.
closing. Ooh.
Gosh.
But the more and more I start thinking about it, there's so many different levels of horror stories, right?
Yes.
There's like the ghosts and the scariness of that, because we do live in New England. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we were established in the 1600s. So we still, I'm selling a house right now that's 300 years old.
Wow.
300 years old.
Really?
Yeah, on Post Road.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's so
It's
cute.
kind of cool. I mean, it's scary with some of the shifting in the foundation, but my clients
Sure.
are prepared to structurally, enhance the property. And
Oh,
they live right
good.
next door, so it's kind of like
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's great.
But with that being said, I had this experience, and this is kind of a good point, is that you should always kind of make sure that title is pulled sooner than later.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this situation where this family owned this plot of land, and they kept building houses, right? And so they had all these little lots in between the houses
Oh.
with no access from any road.
Oh.
Well, we love Warwick.
Yeah.
right? And so it took me a year and a half
Wow.
to figure it out. The poor woman, and she had inherited the house from her mom, right?
Oh.
She had already bought the house behind it.
I
with
find a
her-
lot of these things happen when people are inheriting their houses. They don't want
State
them.
that again.
Yeah.
State that again.
Yeah, if you inherit a house, I mean,
Get the
you
title
gotta,
pulled.
get the title pulled before you let your parents let you inherit it or some. But sometimes
So you know
people don't have
what's
the
going on.
choice.
You know what's going on before you get to
Sometimes
we
it's
have
like
buyer
in a
2
will
weeks
or
before
trust.
closing, and
Because the title can take a long time when you're in the transaction to come back, and then you're up against.
and then that's what happened.
I just
here,
had
is
one
there
take
were-
9 months to close because of title. Yeah.
There were 8 lots, and the city had to merge them all together.
Whoa.
So they had to get a land use attorney to do a land subdivision.
Yeah.
What?
Oh my
And then lots they
gosh.
can't even sell. But needless to say, they all close. There's always a solution.
Yeah,
to every
there is.
problem. And with the title being pulled, the reason why I say that too is I'll never forget. I had a house under contract, and we were set to go to closing, but the buyer's financing fell through.
Mm-hmm.
Something happened with the buyer's job. The income wasn't there. what have you, right? So that happens. And so they'd already pulled title. There was an extra $80,000 loan on the property that the seller had forgotten about because of a loan modification that was done. Because
it's a tough thing to forget about.
Yeah, during the recession, there were a lot of different things that happened between 2008 and 2012. So, sometimes when you need the money, you're not thinking and you just sign stuff, not really like understanding it. And so needless to say, I never sold that house.
Wow.
So
she stayed in it?
No, she actually rented it because it was a multifamily.
Yep.
So she actually ended up renting that.
That's nice.
But I mean, it's just crazy to hear all the different stories and all the different clients that we have along the way, good, bad, and different.
Yeah. So, and you're right. The level of horror can be like varying from 1 to 10 easily.
It can be stressful, money related, or it could be like you're a psychopath.
Yeah. Sometimes they're like, I just had a title issue with one in my buyers, first time home buyers. They had 2 kids, 1 on the way, 9 months.
She was 9 months pregnant.
No, it took the baby.
She had the baby.
Yeah, no, she's gonna have the baby soon, but the deal took almost 9 months to close.
Wow. And what about their interest rate? Do you like how that's the first thing I think?
Oh, I know. No, they were lucky. They were lucky that like it had gone up when they got into contract, and then so they ended up actually getting a little bit of a better.
Oh, so it
March,
actually
April,
worked
May,
out for
June,
them.
July. Maybe 7 months. Sorry, maybe 7 months. Yeah, from the beginning of the year to the end of this year.
So sometimes you just gotta be. There's so many different. It's such a process.
Yeah,
it's such a process.
It is.
So
it's a wild ride out here.
If you were to give advice on the top 2 things to a newer agent in the industry, what would it be?
Advice on the top to newer agents. Get street smart. Carolyn always taught me this. Learn
What does that mean? Get street smart. I like it.
Follow your mentor. First of all, you need a great mentor. Not a good mentor. You need a great mentor. And you need to follow them around all the time.
Shadow.
Yeah. Follow them around all the time. And
go to every inspection possible.
Oh, yeah. I still like going inspections.
That's how I learned about houses.
Yeah.
I'm still learning new stuff every single
You learn
inspection.
every single day in the business. So you need to be open to learning and get street smart. That's
Get
it.
Street smart. I like that.
Thanks.
I am definitely going to take that one moving forward.
Yeah. Because there's a finesse to our business that you have to learn. 100%. You need to know how to deal with other agents. You need to know how to deal with your clients. And you need to know houses.
Yes, 100%. And because we do live in an area that has so many old houses. You know? I mean, some people don't even know what powder post beetles are.
Oh, yeah.
And there's powder post beetle damage on probably every house built before 1930.
Totally.
Before we had pressure treated wood.
Yeah.
Which are all things that I've just learned.
And it's funny because, we have a lot of real estate friends around the country, and some of them, I see them posting these gorgeous houses, and I'm like, oh my God, like they ain't worrying about any of that.
Yeah,
any of what we worry about here.
They're not worried
That's for
about
sure.
floods and
powder post beetles, that's such a good one. Yeah.
I mean, and this is what I tell people. You live in the ocean state. Guess
Yeah.
what? You may not want to buy a house that has termite damage, but you may not have a choice.
Yeah.
And, as long as it's treated, and I think one of the things that we noted before is that there's always a solution.
Yeah.
Everything that comes across our plate.
There really is. There's always a solution.
Always a solution.
And even if the solution is getting out of the contract, that's a solution.
100%.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I just had one more thought that came into mind on the title. Because how important having a clean title is. So I was selling this property in Pawtucket, and I'll never forget. There was an old mortgage from the 90s that didn't have a discharge.
Yep.
You need discharges on mortgages for them to not show up on title, having to be paid back. It was a $60,000 mortgage.
Yeah.
That was taken out, and a business in Maine from the 90s. Is where the $60,000 loan came from. That business was closed.
I was gonna say, is it open?
In the late 90s. Both people that were partners on that had since passed. Okay, I'm like, what do we do?
Yeah. What do you do?
How do we rectify this?
Yeah.
So the closing attorney, which was not my client's attorney, said, we'll just hold we'll hold the money in escrow until we can get a solution. And I said, I'm okay with that if my client is okay with it. My client didn't need the money. So
Yeah.
she said, okay. And that attorney decided to not release the funds. Okay, I called a few months after months, still working on it. Now, the people that bought the house, they were renovating it and flipping it. That house then went back on the market.
And you didn't have the funds back?
Didn't have the funds yet.
And the thing wasn't cleared up?
It wasn't cleared up. They resold the property.
What?
Don't know how. And when I saw that, you can imagine.
Like, what was that attorney doing?
Don't even get me started.
Oh, okay. That's for the next
that is
episode. That's for not an episode.
But so at the end of the day, she did get her money. It took her, I think, a year and 2 months.
Oh my
to get that money. And
goodness.
I had to be.
That is not what we usually use escrows for. Like,
No.
that should not be held that long.
No, you can't. You shouldn't be able to resell the property if you're not releasing the funds to the original seller.
Okay, there's that.
But
no
again,
kidding.
I am not going to report anyone because
Yeah.
that's just not in my repertoire.
Yeah.
I don't, look, we're all trying to, help people get from one place to the next place.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was just happy that my client
Oh,
was
yeah.
able to get her money.
I
back.
can't believe that.
So the moral of the story is make sure that you have a good attorney, whether you're a seller or a buyer. And if you have any landlord-tenant issues, make sure that you have an attorney representing you.
Yeah, and even if you're a seller and you just don't know, have your attorney do a title search before you list the property.
100%.
What's wrong?
Any property
It's a little
that
extra
I get
money,
nervous-
obviously, but
Any property I get nervous about, I reach out and ask for my attorney.
Yeah.
To do that, and they put it in the fee for the.
Yeah.
It just makes the most sense.
yeah, that's actually a great idea.
So, and then I have one other thing. I know I keep saying one other thing, right? I just thought of was.
Just keep hitting me with them.
Oh my gosh. So this house, right? My client owned it for years and years and years. And so he decided when the tenant moved out, the tenant was a boarder, had been there for 10, 15 years,
Mm-hmm.
left a lot of things behind. And when he went in, the smell was so bad. He's like, I didn't know. It was till I got to the basement. I just kept getting stronger. It's true. They had been letting the cat go to the bathroom in the basement.
for 10 years.
You almost can't get it out of. You almost can't. That poor cat. Speaking of cats, you almost
how
can't.
about
You
that
like.
poor seller? I mean, that poor client.
Oh my god!
that
I know.
somebody
I'm worried
was
about the
living
cat.
in his house and treating it that way.
Oh my goodness!
But let me tell you, so when I first went to look at the property, I said, I'm not going in that basement. And
Yeah.
but let me tell you, the tools that are available to us today, that house came out absolutely amazing.
Really?
You go in that basement, you cannot
Wow.
smell
I was gonna say 'cause sometimes you can't get
anything
that
down
out.
there. So there's this, I'll have to ask him what he used, but I'm pretty sure he used the same thing as one of my other investors. And it's this like ionization type.
Oh,
of,
like one of the ozone?
I think so. That he got on
Yeah.
like Amazon or something. It was like $200. It was expensive,
I almost just bought one on Amazon because they were on sale just to have it.
but it really,
For some of these
I
houses.
gotta tell you, it really, really, really worked.
Yeah, I
And,
hear
like,
it does.
We're closing on that house, and you would have never, ever, ever, ever.
Wow.
So
That's a good one.
in closing,
It's a good tidbit.
are there any other things that you can think of that you want to touch on?
I would not any more of my horror stories. Keep the rest of them to myself. But
Or for the next episode.
no, I
Jenny?
think this was for the next episode. So no, I think this was great. New agents obviously got to just keep your head down, work hard, have somebody great mentoring you, and
Jenny is a great mentor. I like to think I'm a decent
we try.
mentor too.
We try out here.
And what
We like a full plate, so of course we like
do,
to mentor. Yeah.
we thrive in chaos. And so for those women that are agents that are looking to really kind of build wealth through real estate, as you've done and as I've done,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say to them just starting out?
I would say don't rush it. know what you're doing before you get into it. You know, it wasn't until years into real estate that I started investing, aside from buying my own home. So, you know, I think
12 years it took for me to buy my first investment property.
it's
So.
awesome.
I know, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's
12 years.
Wild.
And I do have to give it to, you know who really, really pushed me to do it?
Who?
Julie Pettigrew.
Ah, Julie.
Shout out. Hey, Jules.
Hey, Julie.
But yeah, she always pushed it. And I will never, like, it's in the back of my mind. She was always like, do it. And,
Yeah.
It was very, very, very nice to do.
I mean, it's an important thing. I mean, you know, as realtors, you want to be investing in the business that you're in, right? And
1000%.
so, and we're telling other people to invest in themselves. So,
Absolutely. I really, really, really appreciate you coming
Oh,
today
thank you. Thank you for
and
having
doing
me.
this episode with me.
this was great.
Jenny and I have known each other since she was 16 years old. So it's been a wild, fun, crazy ride. I can't wait to see what the future holds.
Many more years to go here.
And thank you so much for listening to Coffee Talk with Mel, coming from the Coffee Grinder in Warwick.